Alrighty, we are live and welcome back to the I didn't do the stuff I said I was going to do last night stream. I did say last night I was going to do the recess shading on the Whirlwind, and I might have done some extra work on here. I didn't do anything. I got caught up playing games and just didn't pay attention to the world. So guess what we're doing today? So I think the first thing I want to do today is I'm going to try and finish up this, the turret, just so that it's ready. I can put it aside and then get back to it at some, just glue it on at some point once the chassis is done. All I did as far as hobby today was actually refresh the paint pot, clean the wet pellet, clean this up. Okay, so I did do something, I just didn't do all the stuff that I wanted to do. I was playing Goose Goose Duck. I'm thinking about actually streaming that tomorrow night. I think I want to take at least one night off from doing painting streams before I've got the kids for the weekend, well, for a week of the school holidays. I'm going to have 3 nephews and a niece staying with me. So being able to chill out and play some games on a stream might be a nice little break before all that craziness. So the yellow I'm using for this is a Uriel yellow, and just because it's going to take a couple of coats, and I'm going to be a little bit messy with it because I'm not the most neat to start with. You know, just because it's going to stand out a bit against the red. If I did have a good pink, I could maybe have done a pink on the front and then yellow over top. That tends to give a better result, a little more smooth. But it's only like a tiny area. I'll be fine doing straight yellow over red. The red did dry a little more patchy than I would have liked, but it's still clearly metallic red, so I'm okay with it. It looks good enough. And as I always say, that is good enough. 6 foot away is all that matters. Well, technically 4 foot, but you know. You get the idea. If it looks okay from the other side of the table, that's as far as it matters. Unless you're entering paint competitions, in which case, you know, go for broke. Just double check on the camera that I'm actually painting in the right spot, since I have a bad habit of painting slightly out of frame. It's something I'm getting better at. At least I'm not throwing out anywhere near as much footage as when I first started streaming and recording videos. There was an entire video that got scrapped because I just didn't have enough footage that was in frame. There's another video that I think I mentioned this the other night. I painted the model, I filmed the model, but I couldn't be bothered editing the video. So at some point that will happen, maybe. Another thing that I've got to do, and I've got the yellow out. I did notice when I was looking at a picture of the Whirlwinds today, this is actually hazard stripes on here. So what I might do is paint it yellow. And then I can come back in with black. I never knew that this was hazard stripes until I was looking on the website today to check if there was anything that I missed. I don't know why they have an obsession with hazard stripes on freaking vehicles. They know how bad painting yellow is. Why do that to us? So with the shading, so for the gold, oh, that's the wrong one. Yep. Just knock the camera out a bit. It's alright. Yeah. Yep, that's better. Rifle Flesh Shade is my go-to for gold. I have used Guilliman Flesh a couple of times as well, because that's a similar browny red. And it doesn't give a bad finish. You can easily swap between the two and neither one will look out of place. The main difference is if you're not doing an extra layer of gold highlights, Guilliman Flesh will stay a little shinier, so it looks a little more metallic. You know, either one works okay. Now, before I get too much into all of this as well, I'm going to dry brush the tracks. If I dry brush it now, actually I will do the light as well. If I dry brush it now, it'll be less noticeable than if I dry brush it and make mistakes while highlighting and shading. So while I've got a second, the headlights, you'll have seen that I've done last night. I painted them white. Now that's dry, I can just go over it with some yellow. It's pale enough that it's going to be okay. Now, there it is. My medium dry brush that needs replacing because it's many years old and is now falling apart. I think that's another one of the themes of my streams. I really need to get new set of brushes. It's starting to get pretty bad when I'm pointing out that this brush is this many years old and this one's this many years old, and they're all looking a little worse for wear now. But you can still see that it's a little muddied up, but it's not, you know, fully silver anymore. And you can build up multiple layers of washes on the tracks and then dry brushes and then wash it again and then dry brush it, just until you get to the, you know, that perfect point. But perfect doesn't matter when you're doing Battlefield Standard. I mean, technically, dry brushing underneath the tracks isn't needed anyway, but you know, sometimes we go that extra step because we want to. I don't think you should ever feel like you have to get to a certain standard of painting just because that's what people expect. Always paint to the standard that you're okay with. And if your standard is it's primed, so it's fine, I don't care. be happy. Alright, now, if that's okay, that's drying. I do want to grab some lead belcher and just finish tidying up this front. There was one little spot at the front too where I looked at it and went, I kind of want to file that down along this side. Looks like there's something caught under the paint. I kind of felt like I should file it down and redo it. Yeah, make it nice and smooth, and but the paint on a vehicle is not going to always be nice and smooth, and maybe I'll hit it with a darker, you know, some Skaven Blight Dinge or something later, and make it look like it's deformed there because it's been hit. Because that sort of stuff works as well. Now I need to tidy up this area here from where I made mistakes yesterday when I painted gold over the silver because I didn't engage my brain before painting. Trying to tidy up some spilled gold, so I painted more gold over it. Alright, that's good. That's fine there. That can sit there. Next up is non-oil, because we're going to have to do recess shading in at least some spots here. I don't think we need to hit the entire tank. We just need to hit some of the spots where it's going to be obvious that we did or didn't do it. So stuff like, we'll really notice the difference here. We will not notice the difference so much around here. We'll notice the difference a little bit on the rivets. We won't notice it in other spots. Also, I should have done this just a second ago. Where I spilled the contrast paint, I need to tidy that up as well. So I'm going to start with, I think, the side. So like I said, rivets. Just tap a little bit of the wash onto the top of the rivet. It'll run in around it. Here. Because there's a deep recess here, adding some shading is normally pretty good. Maybe I should have done that with some contrast. I'm thinking these vents here on the side I should have done with contrast as well. That part there will really stand out. You don't have to be 100% precise. Just get some shade into that general area and it should be okay. Onto there maybe. There's also another method I use sometimes for vehicles, and I did use it. Oh, that's too much. I will come back and fix it up with my Storm Talon, with my drop pod, and that is to airbrush. Sprinklers going on. A mix of roughly 1 part Drakenhof Nightshade, 1 part Null Oil, and about 2 parts Lamian Medium. And that gives you, it'll dull down the armour a little bit, so highlights will stand out better. It also makes it a little bit of an off silver colour. So yeah, it just takes some of the shine off and makes it look less factory fresh. So I found that's pretty good. For the drop pods, I also airbrushed on some heat bloom on the bottom, because I figure going through atmosphere at a great rate of knots is probably going to leave some heat on there. You know, it might not be so noticeable with Ultramarine's super special high heat tolerant paint, but these guys are silver, so the heat bloom would be much more noticeable. So just dot it on. With highlights, it can be really hard to dot highlights on top of these rivets. So, you know, kind of take that into account, because you are going to need to come back in and do the top of these to make it shine. I may actually, depending on how my hands are going at the time, once we get around to highlights, I may use, instead of a GW acrylic, I may go to Vallejo liquid silver for some of the highlights. It is a much shinier silver. It will be a lot brighter for highlighting, so it will stand out a little better against the tank. Push a little in there. Got rivets on the front. And when it gets to highlighting as well, I'm not going to highlight everything. Same sort of thing, I'm going to try and highlight parts that I think will matter. Oh, there's another little view screen at the back. Oh. Oops, I missed that one. I'll pick it up later. Boop, 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 boop. Hopefully that sprinkler's not too loud on the microphone. I also forgot that I was supposed to do the exhaust pipes with the contrast, with silicanum. So, can you guess where I'm going to go with shortly? So it'll also give me a chance to go to some other spots where I think I couldn't throw this down. So into these, get a little less, into these vents here. There was somewhere else I just looked at, man. I need the exhausts. See, this is how bad my brain goes sometimes. I got this specifically to do, got this paint out specifically to do the exhausts, and then immediately forgot about the exhaust. Yay. break out some Thousand Suns blue in a minute. Get that last little air vent there. And then I'm going to hit with some, what is it, Temple Guard blue. I'll throw in a quick layer of highlights on there. And I'll be able to hit with some, I don't have gloss medium with me. Gloss medium's down in the shed, so I'll get with some gloss medium later. My airbrush is set up in the shed, and the gloss medium I've got is I normally use through the airbrush. Actually, along there, because where this turret joins to the chassis, looks a bit too clean. So I'm just going to throw some splotches on rather than actually try and paint like highlights or anything. I'm just going to throw in some non-oil to define these cracks a bit better. So some other spots, I think some non-oil into here to help darken those up. Went a bit heavy on one part there, that's right. Just to add some depth into here. It's not really recessed shading, it's more just dropping some in. Now you can, of course, like some parts of this I'm going to quite happily hit with a dry brush. Other parts I'm definitely going to want to edge highlight. I want to be kind of selective with how I do this. Stuff like the exhaust and these struts, I'm fine to hit those with dry brushes. Some of the panels I will want to hit with, I'm going to add some oil under here too, I'm going to want to hit with edge highlighting instead. On these little pylons on the side as well, on the bottom I'm going to hit them with some Agrax Earthshade on like the bottom half, just to show that it's kind of been muddied. But I'm going to do some other weathering stuff later as well. I used to hate how weathered people made tanks, and I think to a point I still kind of do, because I look at it and see, you know, the thick layers of mud. That's fine. It's a tank, it's operational, it's going to get muddy. And then I see rust on a Space Marine vehicle and I'm like, no. The local Tech Marine will kill you if you let his tank rust. Do not do that. You know, having some dirt and grime is fine. Do not let your Space Marine vehicles rust. So I'm going to come back with some yellow, try and build up this a bit more. It's not going to go very well for me. Yeah. If your Imperial Guard vehicle has some rust on it, I actually view that as kind of acceptable. The Guard are a lot more relaxed about some things like that. But for the Space Marines, everything they have is considered a holy relic. You would not let a holy relic get in that sort of condition. Yeah. There are Space Marine chapters who will go through great lengths to retrieve a Rhino chassis from combat. They are not going to let that same Rhino chassis sit rusting because it hasn't been maintained for 5 years. But that's just my thoughts on it, and I will not ever, I would never stop someone from putting rust on their Space Marine vehicles, especially if it's Chaos Space Marines or Dark Angels. But, it is not my taste. I don't think Space Marines should let their vehicles rust. Like I said, I'm quite happy to do some dry brushing on the side parts of here, side parts of the tank. So I'm going to do that now. Again, medium dry brush because I don't want to go too broad. I'm going to try and stamp out a fair bit of this, and just gently downwards. And yes, I went straight over the gold there. I don't even care. That's good enough highlight for the skull. For the Aquila on the front, we are going to come back in with some Retributor armor. Just because I want to try and give stuff time to dry, so I'm going to... I tend to jump around a lot while I feel like I'm waiting for stuff to dry. I did shade this today, so I did actually get some stuff done when I think about it. It's just I feel like I didn't do anything. I didn't do the stuff that I'd planned to do. Try and roughly pick out some of the stuff there. And then I can come back in, once that layer dries, I'll come back in with a little bit of, what do we got here? Auric armor. Auric armor looks good. Necron compound can go away now. I'm not going to be using that anymore. I think I mentioned this about the bikes. I said I was going to highlight with Moot Green, but I used Warpstone Glow. I don't know why I said Moot Green. I don't think I've ever owned a pot of Moot Green. I always go with Warpstone Glow. Brain fart. So as far as the... I still didn't do that. Alright, so as far as the chassis goes, it's just these lines here on each corner. Nice fine highlight. We don't have to go too insane with extra levels of detail and stuff. For the rivets on the front hatch, I'm going to try and best I can do a little dot on each. Again, we don't want to go too crazy with all our highlights and stuff. I don't even know if people will notice this enough for it to be worth it. So I'm certainly not going to go any finer than this. And the last one will be there. go over that one again slightly. That one was a little bit pale. There. When it comes to the launcher, it can be a little less controlled. Just over the sides. We don't have to hit every single detail, just around the edges, maybe some of the rivets. I'm not going to worry about getting around the vents. Again, it's sort of just where we think we'll be able to notice it the most. So around the borders, then we'll pick out a couple of rivets, and that'll be highlighting done for the greens. As for which rivets I'm going to pick, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to do this part first and then make a decision. So I think that one there, that one there, that's kind of it really. The other ones are kind of, actually there's only 6 on each side, so screw it, we'll just do all of them. 7 each side. You could come along there and there. Yes, I know, I just said I wasn't going to do many highlights, and now I'm highlighting basically everything. But that's because I do stupid stuff and don't listen to my own advice. If I listened to my own advice, it would be very different. I've just got to clean my hands up. I'm getting some paint on my left hand, and I don't want to get things too screwed up with putting paint in spots where it shouldn't be. For quick cleaning your hands of paint, hand sanitizer typically works pretty well. So I'm going to go back with the yellow and just make sure I've built up full opacity here, because I don't think I have. I can see a little bit of green through it. I'm not looking forward to having to try and paint the black, because that's going to be super fine work. Oh, and I was going to, and I will do it quickly now, because I put away the Necron compound. I was going to put some on the mechanical parts there. Again, not listening to my own advice. Just to be careful, I'm going to go with a small layer brush, small dry brush. Just hit some of these areas. Yep, that'll do. And that's gonna be. I've still got to do the black for the turret, for the hazard stripes, and the skull. But otherwise, the turret is now done. I don't want to have to touch it really again. So. What's my Stormhost still looking like? Because using the liquid silver can be a little annoying. I'm not sure if I want to do that. It's right there, that's right there. Grab them just in case I decide to go with it. Because you've got to use mineral spirits to... How much of that's pretty bad too. Alright, you know what? I'm gonna commit. We're going for the liquid silver. Yeah, this is, I think it's an alcohol based paint or something. It's somewhat unpleasant to work with. Especially when you can't operate a child lock, apparently. That's better. I can see it's a lot thinner than acrylic paints, and water will not clean your brush. I'm going to get a little bit down there. Yeah, soap will help clean the brush, but for the most part you're going to want to use mineral spirits. So, going to hit some of these sharp lines. Again, like the other highlights, I'm not going to hit everything. Just some spots where I think it might get noticed. I think along this line will definitely get noticed, because it just adds an extra layer of depth. Same as along here. And the top of the rivets that we've already been working on. Slow and steady on the rivets. Just touch the very top and it should run right off to the top of it without going too far. Along there a little. Again, mostly focusing on the rivets, some of these lines. I don't know why, but I always like to try and make whatever the hell these parts are supposed to be a little bit brighter. On my Sisters of Silence rhinos there, the rhino itself is bronze, but I've done those little parts silver. I don't know why, I just feel like it should stand out. I don't even know what it's for. I think I'm just going to mostly hit the rivets for now, and then I'll come back in and worry about everything else. If my hands hold up. I can already feel like I'm getting a little shaky. This stuff also being alcohol, well, what I assume is alcohol based, from what I've been told, it will dry pretty damn quickly. So be careful on loading too much up at once. There, there. You don't want it to all like dry in your brush. That would be a bad time. I'm going to actually get a bit of the mineral spirits out so I can rinse this brush and start again. And this stuff stinks. As much as I love the liquid colours, I hate having to use the liquid metal colours. I hate having to use mineral spirits. Or white spirits, or whatever the hell you want to call it at the time. So try and clear this out as much as I can. Because like any other paint, you don't want it drying in the ferrule. I'm just going to touch a sanitizer on the brush, just to kind of hydrate it a little. Right. And we're going to need to grab some more silver, so that we start the next lot of highlights. That should actually be enough to finish off the highlights of this. So I'm just going to again make sure this paint isn't too close to the ferrule. The metal bit of the brush. And some of the spots where I'm putting the highlight aren't necessarily edges. As you've seen where I've done there, I'm just brightening up along the front arc a little. It'll be kind of noticeable, but it's not an edge highlight. But it'll be fun. With metals, not everything is going to be a reflection on the edge. There. Bit more there. Bit more there. Yeah, we can throw a little bit on there. Some there. You know, these hinges can get a go. Little rivets on top of the hatch. I think that's pretty good. And then it's kind of onto weathering stuff. When I finish with the liquid metals, I always go for the brush cleaner. Yes, sanitizer is going to be fine for a quick refresh in the middle of painting, but after you've finished painting with the colour, go for a full brush clean. You'll be thankful later on how much better the brush feels afterwards, compared to if you just do a rough job of cleaning it. Massage, yeah, I really like to massage the cleaner in. Then I'm going to rinse all this off and go for the soap again, and it should come out a lot cleaner the second time. Quite often I will as well, because you get gunk in your cleaner. I routinely try and wipe that out. And the water is almost always from a wash bottle these days. So, a couple of drops of water in there. Swirl the brush around to get some soap onto it. And you can see it's leaving a little bit of darker water in the soap. So I try and scoop up as much of that as I can. Sometimes this will take quite a bit to get feeling like it's fully clean. I try and run the brush, like my fingernail, over the bristles to try and drag out any particulate that might be there. Rinse in the water, and it looks okay for now. Because it looks okay, I'm going to hit it with some sanitizer. Again, it helps soften the bristles, and it's got a bit of alcohol, so it'll break stuff down. It doesn't look like there's anything coming off onto my skin, so it should be okay. Like there's one tiny little speck, so it should be okay. Alright, onto some more of the technical type stuff. Well, specifically a technical, Soulstone Blue. I'm going to give it a bit of shake up. So I'm going to use this. There's a couple of little lights in next to the main spotlights. I'm just going to drop this on that. So this is a kind of like a contrast. It's a higher gloss though. So just drop, 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 drop is a transparent blue that has a gloss medium built in. I said I was going to hit that little light panel and I never did. So I'll quickly grab some Thousand Suns of Blue, which is the colour I used for the others. This one here. Can give an extra coat on these guys just to build up the opacity, because if I've got it out I might as well. And I did only put like a tiny drop on the palette, so I'm not going to waste too much of it. Speaking of tiny parts, hazard stripes. So I can see that part there. This part here. This part here. And screw whoever decided that Whirlwind turrets should have hazard stripes on the side. Seriously. Go to hell. especially tiny hazard stripes. Yes, I am completely aware that I could have just avoided painting the hazard stripes and been like, I didn't know that it's detailed, no one will notice. But my pride wouldn't let me. I'm not going to go for full opacity. I'm not going to spend too much time trying to paint it. Paint the hazard stripes. I'm just going to come around the edge now with some green. Some... whatever it is. Caliban green. I was going to say Castellan green, but it's a completely different colour. Just to make sure I didn't spill too much onto the too much of the yellow and black onto the green. This is purely just a tidy up step. And at some point I will hit the skull. So, just on those view screens, a Temple Guard blue for the highlight on. So if you haven't seen how view screens normally get done, or viewing lenses I should say, it's normally just highlight on two sides. However I can get this done. So go like that. On two sides. You can add a darker spot into the bottom there, which if I was going to do that, I might actually do that to show. Nighthawk Gloom Tactical, which is one of the precursors to contrast paints. That should give an okay finish. There's a quick shade in the bottom. Because we're only going to put like a drop in. So just in this bottom corner, just a little bit. Doesn't have to be a huge amount. And then, if you wanted to, you could do a second highlight, not going quite as far. And actually, like I just said, I will demonstrate because I might as well. I would not normally go to this much detail. I didn't on the bikes for their little screens. So next is Baharoth Blue, and it's just halfway. Halfway to where I've done the Temple Guard Blue. So basically just a tiny little bit on the top and the sides. It adds a bit of depth to it, and then if you come back and hit that with a gloss varnish, that's going to do basically everything you want. Now, one of the weathering steps that I wanted to do, I need the Agrax Earthshade. I'm going to just drop in where I had the silicone grey before because it doesn't matter. It should be mostly dry there. So, around the bottom half of here, just to give it a sort of muddied look. Along the back here, especially on the undersides. A little bit along there. Try not to leave too many brush marks when you do it. Some to there because that's where it will impact with the ground. Up there. And back around on here. The same sort of thing I've done with the soot on the exhausts for the bikes, where I've applied some black there. I'm going to grab some Baneblade Brown and do that in the same sort of areas where I've just done the aggressive shit. Words are helpful, and if I could use them it would be even better. So a little bit there, here, a bit there, there, and there. Onto the front, Skaven Blight Dinge, and I'm not going to bother cleaning this sponge off too much. Just grab another spongeful. Try and press a bit of it off, and this time kind of around these areas. Just try and dirty it up a little. If you're doing something that's not silver, you could do an extra layer of like lead belcher or something there to help it look like it's sort of chipped paint. But in this case it's more, less chipped paint and more just dirt and grime building up. Some of the black that I had sitting on the pellet, just around the tops of the exhausts. Don't think I left quite enough black on the pellet to get it all done. It'll be fine. There's still some Skaven Blight Dinge mixed in with that. I just want to slowly build this up so that it looks a little dirty. I'm not going to worry about the undercarriage too much. I know I painted the tracks, but trying to weather the undercarriage can be done pretty easy, but it's just time consuming. To tie it in, I'm going to add some of this onto the back as well. Grab some gold, hit over top of these skulls. And that'll be able to glue it together. I think we'll pretty much be done. And I'll be able to cross another vehicle off, or another item off the list. I did mention earlier in the stream, I will not be able to stream for a bit over a week. Just because of the amount of kids in the house. It can be a little hectic trying to get them all to sleep, and some of them wake up rather easily. So it'll be easier just to not stream, unfortunately. I will still try and get some more stuff done, and hopefully when we come back and start streaming again, there'll be some more stuff crossed off the list. Whenever you're gluing stuff that's already painted, super glue. Super glue is your friend for this, because plastic glue would just destroy your paint job. and I wanted to hit the Aquila. I'm going to need to shake the absolute living crap out of this. I want to hit the Aquila with another highlight, and then finish the bars on those lights, just so that they look finished. Shake the living bejesus out of it. Alright. Have some paint. So when I'm highlighting Aquilas, because they're so small, I normally just worry about the top and the feathers here at the bottom. Sometimes running a line down there is okay, but I try not to go too overboard, because it's a tiny detail. The lead belcher hasn't thinned down too much on the pellet, so just lightly over the lens cover. If you just slowly close the brush in, instead of doing what I've just done there and smashing the brush in, it works pretty well. This is also a good chance if you've, have a look at any details. I think the Nighthaunt Gloom didn't settle really well there, and I think I want to add a little bit more onto that back one because it's a big panel. And done. I don't think there's anything else I want to add to it at the moment. I'm going to just kind of sit with it and see how I go. I'm going to be playing the game Friday, so you'll actually get a chance to get out on the field. Shiny model syndrome, the newest painted models are always going to die first, so I don't know how that's going to work given that every painted model in the army that I'm playing is new. I think that's going to end badly for me. We'll find out. In the meantime, guys, have a good one. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. As I've said before, it really helps out. Comments and likes help people find videos. Subscribes let you guys know that when I'm coming online. Yeah. Have a good one, guys.